Hello and welcome to Spectrum News at 9. My name is Xavier Robert, coming to you live from the beautiful hills of Ibiakuran. Let's take a look at the headlines. This thing is tripping, obviously. Reps berate Accountant General Office for using papers rather than computers for accounting. Plus, Angola's ruling party wins vote as president secures second term. First in our news tonight, federal government has reiterated that petrol subsidy will remain in place until mid-2023, ahead of the 2023 budget presentation. According to the Minister of Finance, Zainab Ahmed, the government is proposing to spend only 3.36 trillion naira for petrol subsidy in 2023 to 2025 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper. The minister added that the federal government is proposing an aggregate expenditure of 19.76 trillion naira for the Zainab Ahmed has ruled out the possibility of the federal government financing any capital project in 2023 fiscal year, going by growing budget deficit. She also said 12.4 trillion naira, depending on the choice that will be made by the government on the issue of subsidy payment on premium motor spirit 2025 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper before the House of Representatives Committee on Finance put the aggregate expenditure of the reduction challenges and petrol subsidy deductions by the NNPC, saying that those constitute significant threats to the achievement. In the meantime, Minister of Finance and National Planning Zainab Ahmed has warned Nigerians against comparing Nigeria with South Africa. According to the minister, South Africa is a tax-based. The minister, who stated this while defending the government's medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper, alleged that most is coming amid plans by the federal government to borrow over 11 trillion naira to finance the deficit in the trillion naira, comprising 7.4 trillion naira from the domestic market and 1.8 trillion naira from foreign seeds, and 1.7 trillion naira multilateral project-tied loans. She added that the federal government has received 1.9 trillion naira from indirect taxes in the first 2 quarters. Taxes are calculated based on current basic prices, such as taxes paid to the government by a producer or retail. The figures were announced by the Bureau in its recent Gross Domestic Product Report 22. It also stated that the aggregate GDP stood at 45.01 trillion naira in nominal terms. The Representatives Committee on Finance has criticized the use of papers for accounting instead of computer system by the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation. The chairman of the committee, James Falake, required by the committee during the hearing on the 2023 medium-term expenditure framework. The director of Federation Account in the Office of Accountant General of the Federation, Mohammed Saleh, appeared before the committee with paper documents containing outdated information. But Saleh claimed that 27 million naira was the update in their books. However, representatives of the Fiscal Responsibility Commission disputed the figure presented by the Office of the Accountant, handwritten but automatically generated. In another development, the International Monetary Fund lender Sabi Heidi has spent 2 weeks with the management and technical staff of the Commission. The latest support by the IMF is reportedly the second mission AfriTAC 2. In a statement by the FRC head of strategic communications, Bede Anyanwu, said the IMF mission to set up a fiscal monitoring framework is a fiscal reform organization that values hard work and integrity in breaking through the fog while delivering on its mandate. To the judiciary now, where Justice Nyang Ekwo of the Federal High Court in Abuja has dismissed a suit instituted by the federal government. The judge held that the extradition request filed by the Attorney General of the Federation on behalf of the federal government lacked merit and is liable to dismissal. Justice Ekwo, however, held that the federal government had no basis. Recall that the federal government had filed the extradition charges against Kyari to pave way for his extradition to America to answer fraud allegations. President Muhammad Buhari and the National Broadcasting Commission from revoking the licenses of 53 broadcast stations in the country and shutting down the stations for allegedly failing to renew their on motion ex parte by the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project and the Nigerian Guild of Editors. Recall that SERAP had last week filed a lawsuit against Buhari and the NBC, asking the court to threaten to revoke the licenses of 50 broadcast stations and to shut down the stations is unconstitutional and unlawful. The Court of Appeal in Abuja has restored the Speaker of Delta State House of Assembly in Delta State. The appellate court today voided and set aside the judgment of the Federal High Court, which Ige, who delivered the Court of Appeal decision, held that claims against the Speaker are criminal in nature and must be proved beyond reasonable doubt. Have approached the court via writ of summons to enable resolution of disputes and not by originating summons, where only affidavit evidence is required. Justice Ige issued the certificates and the alleged fake documents. The court therefore upheld the victory of the Speaker at the 113 votes to come second. Still in politics now, former Kano State Governor Ibrahim Shekarau has officially in Kano State. The former senator was received by the presidential candidate of the PDP, Atiku Abubakar, the party's national chairman, Yocha Ayu, and members of the national worker representing Kano Central was a former Nigerian Minister of Education and two-term governor of Kano State. He was one of the candidates who aspired to become president. Now, the Inter-Party Advisory Council has said the successful implementation of the 2023 elections require active cooperation and single-minded commitment of all key players and stakeholders in the guise of the Savannah Center for Diplomacy, Democracy and Development in Abuja. In a statement signed by his media aide, Ayuba Ahmad, towards ushering in a conducive, rancor-free atmosphere for peaceful and credible elections. Now, in education, the academics started after the National Executive Council meeting at the union's headquarters at the University of Abuja today. The spokesperson for the Federal Ministry of Education, Ben Gong, said government inaugurated a committee to harmonize the IPIS, UTES, and UPV, which will ensure payments through one platform. Of pro-chancellors of state universities say state universities cannot be coerced to implement an agreement reached between the federal government. Chancellors also made a case for democratization of memberships of unions in universities. In a statement by Secretary Marcus Awobi, with their employees as practiced in other parts of the world. They took exception to the comments made by the president. Quarks. Meanwhile, youths, including students from various parts of the country, are urging the federal government. They said such commitment would ensure that adequate resources were provided for infrastructure development in the nation's universities. The youths urged the National Assembly companies according to their rate of carbon emissions. The youths made the demands at the grand finale of Nigeria policy event organized in Abuja. But the government has, through the Ministry of Solid Minerals and Natural Resources, directed a total stoppage of illegal mining in the state. The directives followed the death of 2 persons in an illegal mining site after its collapse at Ika Oboyaga in the Angba local government area. The legal operators to henceforth register with the Ministry of Solid Minerals and Natural Resources to enhance peace and criminal-free sites. The government expressed worry over the activities of some unknown operators in mining sites and advised them to set failure to adhere to the government's directive will lead to closure and shutting down of mining sites and operators. On security matters now, Inspector General of Police Usman Baba has warned that attacks on police officers on official duties will no longer be tolerated. He also ordered all police commands and formations to ensure. In a statement signed by the Force Public Relations Officer Muyiwa Adejobi, the IGP underscored the importance of according respect for the fundamental rights of police officers and other security operatives to enable them advance their. On our special reports on building collapse in Nigeria, a team of engineers are calling on all relevant government agencies and environmental stakeholders to regulate the use of building materials and ensure proper training for artisans and engineers to reduce the mortality rate associated with being led by the chairman, Nigerian Society of Engineers, Uyo Branch Engineer Uwem Akpan, said this during a chat with Spectrum Television's breakfast show Rise and Shine. A correspondent has the rest of this report.
Has had over 5 building collapses in the country, taking the lives of hundreds of people. The frequency of building collapse have raised the question. Speaking on Spectrum Television's Rise and Shine, a team of engineers led by Chairman, NSC Uyo Chapter, Engineer Uwem Akpan. Speaking on Spectrum Television's Rise and Shine, a team of engineers led by the Chairman, NSC Uyo Branch Engineer, inadequate trainings for engineers and artisans. They urged all relevant government agencies to play a part by enforcing the adequate laws and engineering reports available to mitigate this menace.
In the system we are operating today, that you cannot lay a blame on government. What I mean by government in this case, building development. The laws are there. We have them well enough. But they ascertain the causes of the collapse and they report to government as it is. Most times, government will sweep the report. And of course, when it happens like this, and you do not hold on somebody to serve as a deterrent to others, the collapse continues.
Engineer Uwemekwan urged.
If the mix was 1:2:4, the client will tell you, no, I have been doing this thing for 27 years. And the one I built last in Ibadan is still standing till today. I use 1:10:20. When you say, why do they boycott the main engineers? It's cost. Because the engineer will take into cognizance the design fee, he will look at the choice of materials and advise you, don't use the persons that call themselves engineers on site. Will come and say, no, sir, what did that engineer say? He will charge, say 10 million. Says, no, sir. So why should you pay? Sir, give me 500,000 and this thing I would have been doing it.
They also called for the Nigeria. Lydia Martin reporting for Spectrum Television.
In the news, Nigerians pay 1.09 trillion naira indirect taxes to government in 6 months. Do stay with us. Thanks for staying tuned. Moving on now to Africa, where Angola's MPLA party has been declared winner of a closely fought election, extending its decades-long rule in the oil-rich country and handing President João Lourenço a second term. He promised to be the president of all Angolans and to open dialogue after the Electoral Commission announced the results, which saw the opposition make large gains. In his inaugural address shortly after the unveiling of the result of the August 24 ballot, 68-year-old Lourenço said his victory was for the country and its people. The National Electoral Commission reported that the People's Movement for the Liberation of Angola won 51.17% of the ballots against 43.95% for the main challenger, the National Union for the Total Independence of Angola. Despite the victory, the outcome, which is reportedly the tightest in Angola's history, marked a record low for the MPLA and might yet end up in court after the opposition party had earlier rejected provisional results. Poll officials said several members of the Electoral Commission did not sign off on the final tally. Still in Africa, fighting was today reported in a volatile area of northern Ethiopia, despite urgent international appeals for a halt to the renewed hostilities between government forces and Tigrayan rebels. The warring sides have accused each other of launching attacks last Wednesday that torpedoed a 5-month truce and dealt a blow to hope an area around the town of Kobo, which lies in the Amhara region south of Tigray, and fell into the hands of rebel fighters at the weekend, prompting many residents to take flight. Elsewhere, the summit between Japan and Africa finished and has ended with a promise of $30 billion in investment in African aid. Speaking via video link, Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida also promised to pressure for an African seat at the UN Security Council. Kishida also announced that Japan would appoint a special envoy to the Horn of Africa, where a long drought has prompted the UN's weather agency to warn of an unprecedented humanitarian catastrophe this week. On the foreign scene, Ukraine has started a long-awaited counter-offensive in the country's south. This is according to a spokesperson for the country's southern military command, Natalia Humaniuk. At a press briefing in Kiev, Humaniuk said Ukraine's recent strikes on Russia's southern logistical routes had unquestionably weakened the enemy, adding that more than 10 Russian ammunition dumps had been hit over the last week. However, she declined to be drawn into giving more details about the new offensive. Meanwhile, International Atomic Energy Agency Chief Rafael Grossi has announced that he was on his way to Ukraine's Zaporizhia nuclear plant, which has been the target of strikes in recent weeks. In a tweet, Grossi said the day had come and that IAEA's support and assistance mission to Zaporizhia was on its way to arrive at Europe's largest nuclear power plant later this week. Grossi has, for months, been asking to be able to visit the site, warning of the very real risk of a nuclear disaster. The Zaporizhia plant, which has 6 of Ukraine's reactors, has been occupied by Russian troops since shortly after Moscow launched its invasion on February 24 and has remained on the front lines ever since. In the meantime, the White House has said that Russia should agree to a demilitarized zone around the Ukrainian nuclear plant that has become a dangerous front line in the ongoing war. White House National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby told reporters that the Biden administration supports a visit led by the International Atomic Energy Agency IAEA to the Zaporizhia nuclear plant on the Dnipro River in southern central Ukraine. He said a controlled shutdown of the plant would be the safest, will provide a further 500 million crowns, which is the equivalent of $46.75 million in military assistance to Ukraine. Anderson told reporters after hosting Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba for talks that her government would provide a total additional aid package of 1 billion crowns in military and civilian assistance to Ukraine. Kuleba called on Sweden to provide the country with weapons such as howitzers and shells. In a related development, European Union is planning to suspend an agreement that eases the path for Russians to apply for visas to travel to the bloc. An EU diplomat confirmed this to reporters. Before a meeting of EU foreign ministers in Prague to discuss the Ukraine invasion, the envoy said the bloc could not continue the visa policy as it had been up until now. Still on the foreign scene, Belgium's Energy Minister Tien van der Straeten has warned that EU countries will face 5 to 10 terrible winters if nothing is done to reduce natural gas prices. Calls are mounting for an EU-wide cap have been struggling with huge energy price hikes since key gas supplier Russia invaded Ukraine in February, triggering sanctions. Belgian Energy Minister Straeten wrote on Twitter that gas prices in Europe needed to be frozen urgently, adding that the link between gas and electricity prices was artificial and needed to be reformed. Elsewhere, China has urged the United States not to be what it referred to as the troublemaker for peace and stability of the Taiwan Straits. This comes one day after 2 U.S. warships sailed through the straits. It could be recalled that the U.S. cruisers Chancellorsville and Antietam had sailed through the Taiwan Straits yesterday, the first such transit publicized since U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi made a provocative visit to China's Taiwan region on August 2, the White House of Free and Open Indo-Pacific. Spokesperson for the Chinese Foreign Ministry Zhao Lijian refuted the U.S. claim at a regular press briefing in Beijing and asked Washington to stop hollowing out the One China principle. In a separate development, Iraqi Shia leader Muqtada al-Sadr has announced that he is quitting political life and closing his political offices in a move that could further inflame tensions in the country. The statement, published on Twitter, comes amid months of protests by his supporters backing his call for the dissolution of the Iraqi parliament, which has seen 10 months of deadlock representing the longest Iraq has gone without a government. The protesters are also calling for new elections to be held. In Pakistan, a huge relief operation is underway, and international aid today began trickling in as the country struggled to deal with monsoon flooding that has killed more than 1,000 people and affected more than 33 million in the South Asian nation. Officials said 1,061 people had died in Pakistan since June when the seasonal rains began. But the final flood death toll could be higher, as hundreds of villages in the mountainous north have been cut off by flood-swollen rivers washing away roads and bridges. The first 8 flights reportedly began arriving yesterday from Turkey and the UAE. The annual monsoon is essential for irrigating crops and replenishing lakes and dams across the Indian subcontinent, but it can also bring destruction. Officials said this year's films. Climate Change Minister Sherry Rehman called it the monster monsoon of the decade. Elsewhere, engine problems have hampered NASA's launch of the first rocket in its Artemis project, which aims to send astronauts back to the moon. The U.S. Space Agency had a 2-hour window for liftoff from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, but the launch has been cancelled as engineers failed to fix an engine bleed. NSA Administrator Bill Nelson said the rocket was a very complicated machine, adding that NASA was testing the aircraft in a way that could never be done with the human crew on board. And now it's time for the latest business and stock market stories. We have Blyden Okem standing by.
Thank you, Xavier Roberts. Good evening. It's another business week, and my name is Blyden Ukem. In today's business news, Nigerians pay 1.09 trillion naira indirect taxes to government in 6 months. The National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, has revealed that in the first 6 months of 2022, Nigerians paid 1.09 trillion naira in indirect tax to the federal government. NBS revealed this in its latest 2022 second quarter GDP report released at the weekend. According to NBS, the indirect tax paid by Nigerians represents a 10.29% increase from 984.33 billion naira paid in the first 2 quarters of 2021. The breakdown showed that in the first quarter of 2022, Nigerians paid 584.8 billion naira indirect tax and 500.7 billion naira in the second quarter of 2022. Still in business, CBN is to reward Nigerians for using e-Naira. The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has approved a reward scheme for users of the e-Naira, including merchants. This includes providing merchants with the required promotional materials, subsidizing the current merchant service charge by 50%, and activation of a nationwide sensitization that early business adopters of e-Naira can leverage on to market its wider adoption. The CBN Deputy Governor, Economics Policies, Kingsley Obiora, announced the reward scheme at the e-Naira Merchants Mega event in Abuja, organized by the Apex Bank in collaboration with partners for the Nigerian business community. Obiora also confirmed that the e-Naira platform can now facilitate payments using QR codes, USSD, Wallet ID, and e-Naira wallet tag. With the e-Naira, the CBN seeks to enable businesses and households across the outside the country to make fast, efficient, and reliable payments, he said. Access Bank cuts operating hours after spending over 77 billion naira on energy and others. Access Bank has announced it is cutting operating hours. The bank disclosed this in a message to customers. It said, to its esteemed customers, you can simply process most of your transactions via digital channels, as a few of our nationwide branches will be closed at 3 p.m. from the 29th of August 2022. According to the bank, while some of its branches will continue to operate between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m., its electronic channels would be open to customers 24 hours every day. though Access Bank did not state the reasons behind the adjustment of its operating hours. However, this might not be unconnected to the bank's move of diesel, which has so far risen above 800 naira per litre. And it's time for the Nigerian stock market report. At the end of the first weekday of trading on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, a total of 232.94 million shares and 4,425 deals, corresponding to a market value of 2.186 billion naira, were traded. Compared with the previous trading day, today's data shows 20% improvement in volume, 53% decline in turnover, but 34% improvement in deals. The current market capitalization of the Nigerian Stock Exchange is 26.8 trillion naira, and the benchmark Osho Index part 5.4 basis points to close at 49,676.75 points. In Trans-Nationwide Express led the gainers with 9.52% share price appreciation, closing at 69 kobo per share. On the losing side, Caverton Offshore Support Group came out last with an end-of-day price depreciation of 9.57% at 1 naira 04 kobo per share. Jazz Bank recorded the highest volume of 40.4 million traded shares. This is all on business news, and back to Xavier Robert for the rest of the news.
Nigeria's women off to Botswana tomorrow for Under-19 Cricket World Cup qualifiers. Do stay with us. Thanks for staying tuned. In health, the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control (NAFDAC) has said vaccines produced in Nigeria, including those for COVID-19, will be of internationally acceptable standards. The Director General of NAFDAC, Mojisola Adeyeye, made the statement during an oversight visit to the agency's facilities and COVID-19 laboratory projects in Lagos by the House of Representatives Committee on COVID-19. Adeyeye alleged that the health sector had been neglected before the present administration responded through the COVID-19 committees of the National Assembly. On his part, the Chairman, House Committee on COVID-19, Haruna Mshilia, commended the NAFDAC DG and her management team for leveraging the latest technology to upgrade the agency. Still in health, the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, in conjunction with the Development Research and Project Center, has advocated the promotion of health issues across the local government areas to better the lots of citizens. The call was made at a policy dialogue on strengthening health governance in Nigeria at the Institute in Jos, Plateau State. Speaking at the dialogue, the Institute's Director General, Professor Ayo Omotayo, said the health sector was confronting severe crisis occasioned by weak delivery of primary health care, poor health infrastructure, inadequate personnel, poor handling of health emergencies, and absence of planning for health at the local government level. He said the challenges included resource diversions and the absence of autonomy to local governments to operate. Omotayo said the dialogue will examine the state of health governance at the local government level, identify the key drivers of health governance, and evaluate the challenges confronting health governance at those levels. He also added that the dialogue will further make policy recommendations that will promote health governance at the local government level in Nigeria. It is over now to Isaac. Isaac for trending sports stories.
Thank you very much, Sylvia Roberts. In sports, Nigeria's team for the International Cricket Council ICC African qualifiers for the maiden women's under-19 Women's Cup will depart the country later tomorrow for the host city Gaborone, Botswana. The NCC, Nigerian Cricket Federation President Uyi Akpata, said while it is not in doubt that women's cricket in the country is not one of the leading development stories on the continent, the Federation has been working at spreading the efforts across the state. The final list of players to represent the country was released at the weekend after intensive camping at the Edo Boys High School Highest Performance Center. Nigeria will battle the lone World Cup spot with Malawi, Mozambique, Namibia, Rwanda, Sierra Leone, Tanzania, Uganda, and host Botswana. The qualifiers will run from September 3 to 12 in Gaborone, Botswana. Elsewhere, Ferrari's doubt Formula One's ability to effectively enforce the sports budget cap. Ferrari have questioned the ability of Formula One's governing body to police the sports budget cap effectively. Team principal Matteo Binotto said the cap was a very green regulation, adding the number of people for the FIA monitoring. It is very little. He said it has to improve the future because it will be really bad if somehow a championship was dictated by financial regulation or not technical or sporting. His comments come in the wake of claims Red Bull will introduce a lighter car in forthcoming races. It is widespread belief in the F1 that Red Bull will introduce a new chassis that is 4 kg lighter than its existing one as it seeks to close off Max Verstappen's second World Drivers' title and the Constructors' Championship. The Singapore Grand Prix at the beginning of October in 3 races' time is said to be the target event, although it could be sooner. Finally, from sports, Chelsea have announced midfielder Ross Barkley has left the club by mutual consent and is a free agent. Barkley, who has 33 England caps but has not played for the country since 2019, has not appeared for Thomas Tuchel's side this season. The 28-year-old's last game for Chelsea was a 2-1 win over Watford on the final day of last season when he came from the bench and scored a 90-minute winner. Chelsea signed Barkley from Everton in January 2018 for £15 million. He has made 232 Premier League appearances for Chelsea, Aston Villa on loan, and Everton, and has 29 goals. He came on as a late substitute in Chelsea's FA final defeat by Liverpool on 14th May when the Blues lost on penalties at Wembley. And that's it on news. My name is Isaac. Isaac, over to you, Saviour.
Thanks, Isaac. Welcome to the Entertainment Desk. I am Beto O'Brien. First on our bulletin this evening, American singer Taylor Swift has announced a new album as she scooped the top prize at the MTV Video Music Awards VMAs. The singer won several prizes at the event, including the coveted Best Video for the 10 minutes version of All Too Well. Swift said she was so honored to win the prize and took the opportunity to tell fans that her next album, Midnight, will be released on October 21. Other winners include Billie Eilish, Lizzo, and Harry Styles, while Johnny Depp made a pre-recorded appearance. It will be recorded yesterday, Sunday, August 28, 2022. The 2022 MTV Video Music Award VMAs aired live from the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. The award was hosted by LL Cool J, Nicki Minaj, and Jack Harlow. Going into the awards, Kendrick Lamar, Jack Harlow, and Lil Nas X had the most nominations with 7 each. Following them behind was Harry Styles and Doja Cat, who had 6 apiece. While Ed Sheeran, The Weeknd, Drake, Taylor Swift, Billie Eilish, and Dua Lipa all had scored 5 nominations. The Artist of the Year award went to Bad Bunny. Song of the Summer was won by Jack Harlow with the song First Class. Best Hip Hop went to Nicki Minaj featuring Lil Baby for the song Do We Have a Problem. Back here in Nigeria,
The Turntable Charts has launched the #1 awards. Turntable Charts launched the #1 awards program geared towards celebrating the #1 single in Nigerian music. The award is designed and made eligible for all those involved in the creation of a #1 single in the country. This is based on the weekly Turntable Nigerian Top 100, which combines all streaming platforms and airplay across the country. As such, artists, lead and featured, producer, sound engineers, studio personnel, record labels, A&R, music distributor, and managers of the talents involved in the #1 single are all eligible for the award. Following this, Fireboy DML and Ashake are the recipients of the inaugural award for their respective chart-topping singles Bandana and Peace Be Unto You. The former, which is still #1 song in the country, has spent 5 consecutive weeks atop of Nigerian's Top 100, while the latter becomes the first song to reach #1 on the Table Nigeria Top 100, which was launched. And lastly, from the entertainment desk this evening, Meghan Markle accuses British media of calling her children the N-word. American movie star Meghan Markle has accused the British media of calling her kids the N-word, as the Duchess of Sussex made this known in an exclusive interview with The Cut. Markle noted that she and Prince Harry did not have control of the @Kensington Royal Instagram account they initially shared with Prince William and Kate Middleton. It will be recalled that in January 2020, Prince Harry and his wife Meghan shocked the world when they announced they will be stepping back as senior members of the royal family. According to them, they will be stepping aside as they are moving to North America. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle got married in 2018 at a star-studded wedding held in England. They welcomed their first child, Archie, back in 2019. The couple welcomed a second child in June 2021. It will be recalled in the interview, she did point out that she would not want to share a photo of her child with people who call them the N-word before she would do with people who actually love the children. And that's our package from the entertainment desk this evening. I am Peter Bryan, thanking you for watching. Over to Xavier Roberts.
That's all we have for you at this time. Do ensure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtv.ng. You have been watching Spectrum News at 9. My name is Xavier Robert. Do enjoy the rest of the day. Good night.